I'm Jacqueline Hart, I'm 32 years old, and the night my own brother slapped me in the face in front of 150 people is the same night he accidentally destroyed his entire future. It happened at the 50th anniversary of my family's restaurant, Hart's Table, in Los Angeles. The lights were warm, the wine was flowing, everyone was toasting my grandpa's legacy. Then my brother, let's call him Prince Spotlight, stormed onto the little stage we'd set up, grabbed the mic out of my hand, and started screaming about how he was the one who deserved to run the place. And before I could even process his rant, his hand cracked across my cheek so hard the whole room went silent. My parents stood a few feet away. And instead of rushing to me, instead of checking if I was okay, they nodded at him. My mom actually said, "He's the one we need." In that moment, my face burned, but my mind went ice cold. I smiled. "Are you sure?" I asked, loud enough for the room to hear. "That's what you want to say? In front of them?" 2 minutes later, a judge stood up from the crowd, a pre-recorded video of my grandpa started playing on the projector. And my brother had no idea that the trap he thought he set for me was actually waiting for him. If you've ever had a sibling treated like royalty while you do all the work, if you've ever been told to be the bigger person while someone else gets away with everything, this story is for you. Before I tell you how that one slap exposed fraud, ripped apart our family, and almost cost my brother prison time, do me a quick favor. If you love long, messy, real stories about family, justice, and finally standing up for yourself, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a red chili in the comments so I know you're one of the spicy ones. Okay. So it all started long before that party. I was born into Hart's Table before I even took my first breath. I'm Jacqueline, the first granddaughter of Henry Hart. Everyone in LA's old food scene just calls him Mr. Hart. 50 years ago, he opened Hart's Table with one stove, 3 tables, and a recipe for braised short ribs that people still talk about like it's a religious experience. My dad, Mark, is his only son. You'd think that would make Dad the natural successor, right? It didn't. My dad is conflict allergic. He'll do anything to avoid a hard decision. He helped in the early days, but he never really ran the restaurant. Then there's my mom, Pamela, smiling, polished, and absolutely devoted to one mission, making my younger brother Nolan into the golden heir of the Hart Empire. And then there was me. The responsible one. The good girl. The one who doesn't need as much. When I was 10, I remember standing on a milk crate in the kitchen, watching my grandpa stir a pot of marinara. "See this?" he said, tapping the wooden spoon against the rim. "This is the Hart. It's not just the recipe. It's the care. The timing. The way you taste it and adjust. Most people don't have the patience for that." I leaned in, inhaling the steam. "I can do it, Grandpa." He smiled. "I know you can, Jack." Jack. No one else called me that. Just him. Meanwhile, Nolan, 4 years younger, would sprint through the kitchen in brand new sneakers, nearly slipping on the tiles. "Nolan, stay out of here," Mom would call, laughing like it was cute. "You'll get dirty." That was the story of our lives in one scene. I was supposed to get dirty. He was supposed to stay shiny. Nolan's entire upbringing could be summarized by 3 phrases I heard on repeat. "He's just finding his way. It's harder for boys, you know. You're the strong one, Jacqueline. He needs the opportunities." When I was 13, Grandpa let me help close the restaurant on weekends. I learned how to count the register, how to check the bookings, how to talk to vendors without getting steamrolled. I loved it. The restaurant was alive. It made sense in a way my family didn't. One night, we were rolling silverware and napkins after a crazy Saturday dinner rush. My grandpa said, almost casually, "Someday, this place is gonna need a captain. Someone who knows the bones, not just the sign outside." I glanced up from the cutlery. "You mean Dad?" Grandpa chuckled. "Your dad is a good man, but he hates telling people no. A restaurant lives and dies on no's. No, we can't comp that. No, you can't treat the staff like that. No, we're not cutting corners." He looked at me over his reading glasses. "You're not afraid of no, Jack. That's what worries your mom but impresses me." I remember that line. It lodged in my chest and never left. Meanwhile, Nolan was busy skipping shifts, forgetting to bus tables, and bragging that he'd never need to work in some old family restaurant because he was going to be a major player in hospitality real estate. He was 15. And every time he flaked on a shift, Mom would swoop in. "He's young, Dad," she'd tell Grandpa. "Don't be so hard on him. He's meant to be the big picture guy. Jacqueline can handle the details." I heard that so many times it started to feel like my job description: handle the details so Nolan can dream. 3 years before the anniversary party, Grandpa called a family meeting in the private dining room. Long oak table, dim lights, his old framed reviews on the walls. I knew something big was coming. Grandpa didn't do formal meetings unless the world was actually shifting. He sat at the head with a folder. Dad sat on his right, Mom on his left. Nolan slouched in a chair near the middle, scrolling on his phone. I sat near the end, like I always did, close enough to help, far enough not to be in the way. "All right," Grandpa said, folding his hands. "I'm almost 78. I'm not going to be the one closing up every night forever." My chest tightened. "You're not retiring," I blurted out. He smiled at me. "Not yet, Jack. But I am putting things in order." He slid paperwork toward my parents. "Hart's table is legally mine. And I'm naming a successor. One person in charge of operations, staff, and vision." I saw Nolan straighten. Mom's hand went to her necklace. Dad's gaze dropped to the folder. "And that person," Grandpa said, "is Jacqueline." Silence. I stared at him. "Me?" He nodded. "You've been here. You know the numbers. The food. The regulars. You've done the work." Mom's voice went brittle. "Dad, you can't be serious. Nolan is your grandson." "So is she," Grandpa shot back. "And Nolan hasn't turned this. He breezes in, takes selfies in front of the sign, and calls that building the brand." Nolan slammed his palm on the table. "You never gave me a chance. You always treated me like some screw-up." Grandpa didn't flinch. "You acted like a screw-up. Jacqueline acted like an owner." Dad finally spoke, voice quiet. "Dad, maybe we could share the leadership? Nolan could." "No." Grandpa's voice cut through the room like a knife. "One captain. We're not running this place by committee. I've signed the papers. When I step back, Jacqueline's in charge." I should have been thrilled. Instead, I felt something else, a weird, heavy mix of gratitude, dread, and a cold awareness that this moment had just painted a massive target on my back. Later that night, as I walked to my car, Nolan caught my arm in the parking lot. His eyes were wild. "You think you deserve this?" he hissed. "It's not about deserving," I started. "Bullshit," he snapped. "You stole my birthright." I stared at him. "You're what?" He stepped closer, breath hot. "I'm the Hart son. I'm supposed to be the face. You're supposed to support. That's what Mom always said." "I didn't ask for this," I said, anger starting to rise. "I just showed up and did the work nobody else wanted to do." He smirked. "Enjoy it while it lasts, Jack. You have no idea how this game is really played." I wish I'd taken that as a warning. Because 6 months before the anniversary party, I found out exactly what game he meant. 6 months before the 50th anniversary, I was in my tiny upstairs office, buried in vendor contracts, menu drafts, and an early mock-up of the anniversary invitations. The door swung open without a knock. Nolan strolled in, designer jacket, sunglasses pushed up on his head even though it was cloudy. He dropped into the chair across from me and propped his feet on my desk like he owned it. "Move your feet," I said flatly. He smirked but did it. "Relax, Captain. I come with an opportunity." That was the nickname he'd given me after Grandpa's announcement, Captain, always dripping with sarcasm. I leaned back, waiting. "So," he said, clasping his hands. "Stacy's launching her new lifestyle brand. It's going to be huge. We want to do the kickoff event here. Full takeover. Content, live stream, the works." Stacy, his influencer wife, made decent money turning brunch into brand deals. She also treated Hart's table like a cute rustic prop, not a living, breathing business with payroll and food costs. "We're already booked out that month," I said. "We're prepping for the anniversary. There's no space." He snorted. "Make space." I pointed at the calendar on the wall. "We have deposits for every weekend and the weekdays are slammed." This isn't a backdrop for your photo shoots, Nolan. It's a restaurant. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. You know what your problem is, Jack? You have no vision. Grandpa gave you the keys and you're driving the whole brand into a retirement home. You should be thanking me for bringing in real attention. I felt my jaw clench. Real attention doesn't mean turning this place into a circus so your wife can pose with our charcuterie boards. His nostrils flared. So that's a no. It's a no, I said, meeting his stare. The answer is no. He stood up slowly, pushing his chair back with a scrape. You're gonna regret that, he muttered. I watched him walk out, and an uneasy chill prickled across my arms. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was Mom. You turned down Nolan? She demanded the moment I answered. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Hi, Mom. Yes, I said no. We're fully booked and... He's trying to help the family name, she snapped. You're just being territorial, Jacqueline. This isn't about territory, I said. We have contracts. Nolan says you're scared he'll outshine you, she cut in. Is that what this is? Because you're so obsessed with being Grandpa's chosen one that you can't see what's best for the business? I stared at the wall, stunned. Mom, I'm literally doing what Grandpa asked me to do, protect the restaurant. We can't just cancel booked events because Nolan decided his wife needs a new photo shoot. You've always been selfish, she hissed. Nolan is the one who was meant to lead. You're just holding the spot. She hung up. I remember sitting there afterward, my heart pounding, trying not to cry. Not because she'd said I was selfish, I'd heard worse, but because it confirmed something ugly I'd always suspected. In my mother's world, I was a placeholder. Nolan was the heir, even if the legal papers said otherwise. That night, I drove to Grandpa's house. He answered the door in his worn navy cardigan, the one with a burn mark on the sleeve from a grease flare-up in 1987. The house smelled like garlic and basil, like always. Uh-oh, he said, taking one look at my face. Something's burning, and it's not my sauce. We sat at his small kitchen table. I explained Nolan's demand, the call with Mom, the way she called me selfish for protecting his restaurant. Grandpa listened, elbows on the table, fingers steepled. That boy has always thought the world owed him something, he said finally. Your mother poured gasoline on that fire. Your father just watched. I swallowed. He said I'd regret saying no. Grandpa's eyes sharpened. Did he now? He got up, walked to the old credenza in the corner, and pulled out a folder. When he came back, he didn't open it. Just set it on the table between us. Years ago, when Nolan was trying to impress some buddies, I let him see some of the old legal documents. Ownership papers, trademark filings, that kind of thing. I thought maybe it'd light a work ethic under him, he sighed. Instead, it lit something else. My stomach tightened. What does that mean? He looked me dead in the eye. Watch him. He's not just angry. He's ambitious in all the wrong ways. He doesn't understand this place, but he understands leverage. If he can't have Hart's Table the right way, I wouldn't put it past him to try the wrong way. I thought he was being dramatic. He wasn't. Jacqueline, he said, his voice heavy, Hart's Table is my life. I chose you for a reason. Protect it. Don't let anyone, not even family, sell pieces of it out from under you. I went home that night with my grandpa's warning echoing in my head, not realizing that Nolan was already making moves. 3 months before the anniversary party, I walked into the restaurant one morning and froze. Right there on the host stand was a stack of glossy flyers. Nolan Hart Presents, a new ERA for Hart's Table. His face was front and center. Stacy's face was next to his. Underneath, in a smaller font, celebrating 50 years of Hart's Table, and the future to come. My name was nowhere. I felt my pulse spike. I grabbed one and stormed into the dining room. Nolan stood near the bar instructing 2 servers to move tables around. What the hell is this? I demanded, holding up the flyer. He didn't even flinch. Marketing. For who? I said. Because this looks like the 50th anniversary is your personal rebrand. He chuckled. It is my rebrand, Jackie. You're thinking too small. A 50-year anniversary is a perfect moment to pivot. New era, new leadership. My jaw actually dropped. You don't have leadership, I said. You don't have a title. You don't even have a key to the office. You have absolutely nothing. Except influence, Stacy cut in, gliding up next to him, phone in hand. She started filming me with a sugary smile. Hey guys, she cooed into the camera, behind the scenes planning for something huge at Heart's table. Stay tuned. I stepped out of frame. Don't film me. She rolled her eyes and dropped her phone a little. Relax, she said. We're doing this for all of us. More eyes on the restaurant means more money. You should be thanking us. Nolan, I said, ignoring her, I didn't approve this. He shrugged. Mom did. That took the air out of my lungs more than anything. Mom doesn't run the restaurant, I said, softer but sharper. I do. He stepped closer. In your head, maybe. But people see Heart, they think of me now. Not you. This just makes it official. I wanted to scream. Instead, I took a breath, crumpled the flyer slowly, and dropped it in the trash can. This is Grandpa's anniversary, I said. Not your launch party. Keep this stunt up and I will shut you out of the building completely. His jaw twitched. You wouldn't dare. Try me, I said. As I walked away, my hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the back of a chair to steady myself. The first person who saw right through Nolan's act was Brian. Brian is in his early 40s, balding a little, always smells faintly like rosemary and printer ink. He's been the front-of-house manager since I was in high school. He's the guy who remembers your regulars' birthdays and your vendors' kids' names. To me, he's half mentor, half work dad. That afternoon, he knocked softly on my office door. Hey, Jack, he said. You got a minute? I nodded, feeling my shoulders drop a fraction. Please tell me you have good news. We're out of good news. He shut the door behind him and sat down. I saw the flyers, he said. And I saw your face when you saw the flyers. I exhaled. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Am I overreacting? Or is he really trying to hijack this whole thing? Brian shook his head. No, you're not overreacting. They're completely enabling him. He let the words hang there. You're not the bad guy here, Jacqueline, he added. You've been holding this place together while they treat it like Nolan's content studio. It's not okay. And I'm not going to pretend it is. I felt my eyes sting. I hadn't realized how badly I needed someone to say that. I keep thinking maybe I'm being too harsh, I admitted. Like, he's my brother, right? Maybe I should be more forgiving? Brian shook his head again. Forgiving is for people who make mistakes and try to fix them. Nolan is making choices and expecting you to clean them up. That's not the same thing. He leaned forward. And there's something else. My stomach dropped. What? I've seen him in the private dining room with guys in suits, Brian said. Not food guys. Finance guys. He's been having them sign NDAs. Last week, he asked me to print a packet for him, legal documents. I skimmed the title page. It said Equity Proposal, Heart's Table. I stared at him. He what? Brian nodded. I don't think he realizes the shared printer logs keep copies. I pulled one. He's pitching a 35 to 40% stake in the restaurant. That's impossible, I whispered. He doesn't own anything. Brian shrugged helplessly. Investors don't know that. If he's waving around old documents Grandpa gave him, they might think he has authority. I felt like the room was tilting. What would you have done in my situation? I asked quietly. Honestly. If you found out your brother was using your family's business like his personal monopoly piece? Brian's answer was immediate. Exactly what you're thinking of doing, he said. You document everything. You protect what's yours. And if you need to go nuclear, you go nuclear. I sat there, staring at the wall, realizing that this wasn't just family drama anymore. This was fraud. That night, after everyone left, I stayed late. The restaurant was dark and quiet, except for the hum of the fridges and the faint clatter of the dishwasher finishing its last cycle. Nolan's laptop was sitting on the corner of the office desk. He'd left in a huff earlier after some urgent call. I just stared at it for a long time. My heart was pounding. On the one hand, it wasn't my laptop. On the other hand, it was company property. And if he was using company resources to scam investors, I had a responsibility to know. I took a deep breath, sat down, and opened it. No password. Of course. His email was open. I scrolled. Subject line after subject line. Hearts table, equity discussion. Follow-up, ownership stake proposal. Next steps for investment. I clicked on one at random. There it was, a fake contract with a scanned signature that looked like Grandpa's, if you squinted and had never actually seen his hand shake slightly when he wrote. I zoomed in. The signature line read, Henry Hart, founder, by and through authorized representative Nolan Hart. I actually laughed out loud. A sharp, humorless sound. "Oh my God," I whispered. "You idiot." The body of the email was worse. "As the future leader of Hearts Table, I'm excited to offer you a 35% stake as we transition into a modern, investor-friendly structure. My sister, Jacqueline, has been handling day-to-day for now, but I'm moving us into real growth." My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. I forwarded the email to my own account, then printed a copy. One by one, I opened similar threads. Investor names. Meeting times. Different percentages. All backed by the same forged signature. I stacked the pages together, stapled them, and slid them into a folder labeled simply, Nolan, Fraud. The next morning, I called Judge David Holt. Judge Holt has known my grandpa for decades. They played poker together on Thursday nights when I was a kid. I remember Grandpa muttering things like, for a judge, he's a terrible bluffer. In reality, he's not terrible at all. We met in his small downtown office. Law books, framed degrees, a little coffee machine that looked older than me. I slid the folder across his desk. "I think my brother's committing fraud," I said, my voice steady even though my hands were trembling. He glanced at me, then started reading. Silence stretched. Finally, he looked up. "Jacqueline, these documents are very bad for Nolan. And very good for you." I blinked. "Good for me?" "They prove exactly what your grandfather has been worried about," he said. "He gave your brother partial access years ago, and Nolan abused it. These are forged, the signature is sloppy, the phrasing is wrong. But they'd look real enough to an outsider." "So what do we do?" I asked. He steepled his fingers, just like Grandpa does. "First, we document everything. Every email. Every investor. Then we notify your grandfather and ensure the legal ownership is airtight. Then," he smiled slightly, "we make sure that if Nolan tries to pull something public, it backfires where it hurts him most." "His reputation," I said. "Exactly," he said. "You don't just want to stop the deal. You want to make sure he can't repeat this somewhere else." That night, Grandpa called me. His voice was steady, but there was a sadness under it I'd rarely heard. "Brian told me what he found," he said. Holt filled me in. "I always suspected Nolan might try something, but I hoped. Well, hope's a fool sometimes." A lump formed in my throat. "I'm sorry, Grandpa." "You have nothing to apologize for," he said firmly. "You're doing exactly what I asked you to do. Protect the restaurant. Protect our name. I'm proud of you." He paused. "I've recorded something for the anniversary party. Holt has the file. If Nolan tries to use that night as his coronation, we're going to use it for something else." I frowned. "What did you record?" "You'll see," he said. "Just know this, whatever he does up there, you're not alone. And no matter what your parents say, legally and morally, Hearts Table is yours to guard." When we hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed and just breathed. For the first time, I felt something stronger than anger or fear. I felt ready. The night of the 50th anniversary, Hearts Table glowed. String lights across the patio. Kindles on every table. A slideshow of old photos looping on the projector, Grandpa stirring sauce in the 70s, my dad buzzing tables in the 80s, me as a scrawny teenager carrying plates bigger than my torso. We'd invited everyone who mattered to the restaurant's story, old regulars, retired servers, a few local food critics, some influencers I carefully selected, not the shallow, cloud-chasing ones Nolan loved, but people who actually cared about food. We also invited about 30 investors. On purpose. If Nolan was going to act up, I wanted the right people to see it. I wore a dark green dress and Grandpa's old watch. I'd written a speech about legacy, about how a restaurant is more than four walls, it's 1,000 tiny promises kept every day. At around 8 p.m., Brian tapped his glass with a fork. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said into the mic, Thank you for being here to celebrate 50 years of Heart's Table. Please welcome the person who has been captaining this ship for the last 3, Jacqueline Hart." The applause was warm. Real. I felt it in my chest. I stepped up, took the mic, smiled out at the crowd. "Thank you," I began. "This restaurant started as one stove and a stubborn dream. My grandpa." And that's when I saw Nolan moving toward me. He walked fast, jaw clenched, eyes bright with something like adrenaline and alcohol. I kept talking, hoping he would just sit down. But he didn't. He reached the stage, yanked the mic out of my hand so hard my fingers stung, and turned to the room. "This isn't just about some old man's dream," he said, voice booming. "This is about the future of Heart's Table." The room rustled. I heard someone near the back whisper, "Is this part of it?" He paced the little platform like it was his TED Talk. "For too long," he continued, "this place has been held back by fear. By nostalgia. By people who don't understand growth." His eyes flicked to me on the word people. I stood there, heart pounding, but I refused to move. He pointed at me. "My sister has done her best, sure," he said, with a fake gracious laugh. "But she's not equipped for what's coming. Investors, expansion, franchising, those are my world. I'm the one who will take Heart's Table into its next era." He straightened, basking in the tension he'd created. "I'm the one who deserves to run this place." You could hear a fork drop. Mom stood up from a table near the front, her face flushed. "He's right," she said loudly. "Nolan is the one we need leading this. He's always been meant for it." Dad gave a tight nod, staring at his glass. The hurt that went through me in that second. I don't know if I can describe it. It wasn't just that they disagreed. It was how easy it was for them to erase me. Everything slowed down. The clink of glasses, the shifting of chairs, the heat of the stage lights on my face. I stepped closer to Nolan so only the front few tables could really see the expression in my eyes. "Are you sure you want to say that?" I asked quietly, "in front of them?" He smirked, misreading me entirely. "I'm not afraid of them," he said. "I'm not afraid of you." He turned back to the crowd. "From tonight on, you'll be seeing a lot more of me and a lot less of." I touched his arm. "Nolan, that's enough," I said firmly. "You're embarrassing yourself." He spun around. And then his hand connected with my cheek. The sound cracked through the room. For a second, I saw stars. My face burned, my ears rang, and the world went very, very, very quiet. Someone gasped. A glass shattered somewhere. Stacy's phone, I noticed in a weird, detached way, was still up. She'd been filming. I straightened slowly. My heart was racing, but my voice, when it came out, was almost calm. "You done?" I asked him. There was a tremor around his mouth. "You made me do that," he snapped. "You don't listen. You never listen." Mom's voice cut through the silence. "Nolan's the one we need," she repeated, as if the slap hadn't happened. "Sometimes tough decisions." "Pamela." The voice that interrupted her came from somewhere in the crowd, firm and clear. Grandpa's face appeared on the projector screen behind us, his pre-recorded video lighting up the room. Nolan's smirk faltered. On the screen, Grandpa sat in his favorite booth, wearing a crisp white shirt and his old Heart's Table apron. "If you're seeing this," he began, "it means I couldn't be there in person. Age wins sometimes." A ripple of soft laughter moved through the crowd. Nolan shifted nervously. "I want to be very clear," Grandpa continued, his eyes sharp even through the pixels. "Heart's Table is my life's work. It is not a toy. It is not a photo backdrop. It is not a brand to be flipped like a condo." A few people near the bar murmured. Stacy lowered her phone. "I have one successor," he said. "One person I trust to carry this forward. That person is my granddaughter, Jacqueline. Not my son. Not my grandson. Jacqueline." He paused. "Let it sink in. She's the one who's been here at midnight fixing broken ice machines. She's the one who's argued with vendors, comforted servers after bad shifts, fought for our recipes when consultants told us to cut corners. She's the only one who understands that this place beats with a heart, not a calculator." He leaned closer. "If anyone tells you they're the future of Heart's Table and it's not Jacqueline, they're lying. Or they're stealing." The word stealing hung there like a weight. "I love my family," Grandpa said. "But love does not mean handing the keys to someone who hasn't earned them. Jacqueline has earned them. And I will back her, in life or in writing, every single time. The video cut. Before anyone could even process it, a chair scraped back in the crowd. A man in a dark suit stood up. Short gray hair. Serious face. Judge David Holt. His voice carried without a mic. What everyone just saw, he said, isn't just a sentimental video. It's a legal clarification from the owner of this restaurant. And what I just saw, he added, turning his eyes to Nolan, was assault. Nolan flinched. It was a family argument, he said, suddenly sounding a lot less confident. Everyone's overreacting. Raising your voice is a family argument, Judge Holt replied. Slapping someone across the face in front of 150 witnesses is assault. Murmurs spread through the room. A few people started filming again. You will face legal consequences for that, Holt said, tone calm but iron hard. And as your grandfather's attorney, I suggest you sit down and say nothing else that might damage you further. Nolan looked at Mom. She looked stunned, torn between outrage and fear. This is getting blown out of proportion, she tried. David, you've known Nolan since he was a baby. He's just. Pamela, Holt said, I have also known Henry since before Nolan existed. And Henry made his wishes very clear. He turned to me. Jacqueline, are you all right? For the first time that night, I felt my throat tighten. I'm fine, I said, even though my cheek still throbbed. Brian appeared at the edge of the stage like a shadow, eyes on Nolan, ready to intervene if he lunged again. Stacy tugged Nolan's sleeve. Let's go, she whispered. This is bad. He shook her off, chest rising and falling. You think this is over? He spat at me. You think some video and your little pet judge are gonna stop what's coming? I looked at him sadly. No, I said. They're just the beginning. After the anniversary, the story spread faster than I ever planned. But the real blow didn't come from the slap. It came from what we revealed after. Judge Holt filed a report about the incident. He also quietly began organizing the evidence I'd collected of Nolan's forged contracts. We discovered at least 4 investors he'd approached, including one big one, Ellen Carter, a Los Angeles-based venture capitalist with a reputation for backing restaurant expansions. She sent me an email about a week after the party. Jacqueline, I was under the impression Nolan had authority to negotiate equity in Hart's Table. Given recent events, I'd like clarification on this. I invited her for coffee. We sat across from each other at a small cafe, her laptop open, my folder on the table. I'll be honest, she said, scrolling. Nolan pitched confidently. He came off like the visionary younger heir, fighting against old guard resistance. It's a compelling narrative. Until you see this. I slid the forged contract toward her. Your copy of the contract, I said, has a slightly different percentage. But the signature is the same. It's not my grandfather's. It's Nolan's attempt to copy it. She studied it, then studied me. So legally, he owns nothing. Nothing, I confirmed. Grandpa owns 100%. When he passes, it goes to me. That's in Holt's files. She sat back, exhaling. Well then. I don't like being lied to. And I really don't like it when someone tries to drag me into family fraud. That's when Holt floated the idea of using Nolan's own ambition against him. He's still planning to pitch at the Los Angeles Food Conference, Brian told me one afternoon, sliding a printed schedule across my desk. Panel on legacy brands and modern expansion. He's using Hart's Table as his case study. I stared at Nolan's name on the program. Of course he is. We can stop him beforehand, Holt said. Cease and desist, threat of legal action, keep it quiet. I thought about it. Slowly, I shook my head. No, I said. We're not stopping him. We're letting him talk. Then we're going to show everyone exactly what he's been doing. Holt raised his eyebrows. That's bold. Brian gave a half grin. I like it. My heart pounded, but under the fear was a strange calm. My whole life, I'd been told to keep the peace, to swallow my anger, to not make a scene. This time, the scene was going to be mine. The Los Angeles Food Conference was held in one of those big, over-air-conditioned hotel ballrooms that always smell like coffee and carpet cleaner. Chefs, investors, PR people, and foodie influencers packed the seats. Hart's Table had a modest booth, some photos, a few sample bites, Brian greeting old regulars who would become industry figures. On the main stage, Nolan was billed as next general hospitality leader, transforming legacy restaurants for the modern era. I nearly choked when I read that. I can't watch, Brian muttered as we took seats in the back. You can, I said. You're going to need to see his face. Nolan walked on stage in a perfectly tailored suit, Stacy sitting front row, phone ready. He looked polished, confident. If I didn't know him, I might have believed him. Good afternoon, he said into the mic. I'm Nolan Hart, and I'm here to talk about how we're transforming Hart's Table, a 50-year Los Angeles institution, into a scalable, modern brand. He launched into a slick slideshow. Photos of the restaurant, graphs of projected growth, bullet points about franchising, branded meal kits, national expansion. At one point he said, "Our team," and I almost laughed. Our team. As if he'd spent a single Friday night checking inventory. As we move into our next phase, he continued, we're excited to welcome strategic partners who share our vision. We've already secured initial commitments for equity stakes and... That was my cue. I stood up. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, but my voice came out clear. Nolan, I called out, loud enough to cut into his cadence. You forgot to mention something. Heads turned. A few people recognized me from the anniversary party gossip. Phones started coming out. He blinked. This is a scheduled talk, he said. Please hold questions for the Q&A. This isn't a question, I said. I walked down the aisle, stepped right up to the edge of the stage, and turned to the event coordinator at the tech table. Can I borrow the screen for a second? I asked, already holding up the USB drive Holt had given me. The coordinator hesitated, then looked at Nolan. Nolan scoffed. She's just bitter, he said into the mic. We can. Go ahead, someone in the front row murmured. Let's see it. The coordinator shrugged and plugged in the USB. The room's attention snapped to the giant screen as my slides replaced Nolan's. First slide, a scanned forged contract. Grandpa's fake signature circled in red. My name nowhere. Equity proposal, Hart's Table, labeled with Nolan as authorized representative. A murmur rippled through the room. Second slide, a blown-up email where Nolan referred to himself as the future owner of Hart's Table and called me an obstacle to modernization. Third slide, a screenshot of Grandpa's recorded statement naming me as sole successor. I took the second mic the moderator offered me. For everyone here, I said, I'm Jacqueline Hart. I run Hart's Table. Legally. Operationally. Actually. Light laughter, tense but supportive. My grandfather, Henry Hart, owns 100% of the restaurant, I continued. When he dies, it passes to me. He recorded that video on your screen to make sure there was no confusion. I gestured at the forged contract. These contracts, I said, are fake. The signature is not his. My brother used old legal documents Grandpa once showed him to fabricate these. He has been pitching stakes in a restaurant he does not own. I let that sink in. Ellen Carter stood up from her seat in the middle row. That's correct, she said. I received a similar contract from Nolan. I'm terminating our discussions, effective immediately. She walked down the aisle, came up to the stage, and tore her paper copy in half. The sound echoed. Others followed, a man in a gray blazer muttering, unbelievable, as he deleted an email thread from his phone. A woman shaking her head as she snapped a photo of the contract on the screen. Nolan's face had gone chalky. He stepped toward me, mic tight in his grip. You're twisting this, he snapped. You've always been jealous. Jealous of what? I asked quietly into my mic. Of your lies? Of your ability to take everything our grandfather built and turn it into a scam pitch deck? The room went very still. I took Grandpa's letter from my pocket. Holt had framed it as a legal addendum to his will, but I'd printed a plain copy for this moment. This is from Henry Hart, I said. He says, and I quote, no one other than my granddaughter Jacqueline has my permission to sell, negotiate, or represent ownership of Hart's Table in any way, in life or death. I looked at the audience. So if you received a contract from anyone else, he was lying to you. More murmurs. Some people clapped, quietly at first, then louder. Stacy stood up suddenly, face flushed, eyes wide. You told me your grandfather gave you control, she said to Nolan, loudly enough for the front half of the room to hear. You told me we were building something together. He grabbed at her wrist. Stace, not now. She yanked away. You used me, she said, voice shaking. You used my followers, my name, my time, and all of it was based on a lie. She looked at me. I'm sorry, she said. For my part in this. And then she walked out. No dramatic heel click. Just quiet, deliberate steps that sounded like a door closing in his life. You know those slow-motion scenes in movies where the protagonist finally gets to flip a script that's been choking them for years? It felt like that. Except this wasn't a movie. This was my brother's real fraud unraveling in real time, because he'd been reckless enough to make it public. That's karmic justice for you. It doesn't always arrive on your schedule, but when it shows up, it uses their own microphone. After the conference, everything happened fast. Judge Holt filed formal fraud charges on Grandpa's behalf. There was talk of civil suits from investors, criminal inquiries about forgery. Nolan's lawyer tried to spin it as family miscommunication, but the emails were too clear. Within a month, Ellen Carter released a short statement about being misled by a non-authorized party and reaffirmed her respect for me and Hart's Table under my leadership. 2 local food blogs ran pieces about how not to inherit a restaurant, dragging Nolan without needing to say his name. Stacy's social media went mostly dark. The last post she left up was a vague learning who my real friends are caption that everyone understood. Mom and Dad tried to keep quiet at first. But you can't stay quiet when your son's name is in a court docket and your restaurant's business is on Eater LA. When they finally called, the tone was very different. We met at a small cafe a few blocks from the restaurant. I chose it because it wasn't Hart's Table. Neutral ground. No ghosts in the walls. Mom looked older than I remembered. Dad looked like he hadn't slept. Jacqueline, Mom said, voice small. We wanted to talk. I sat down, folded my hands, and waited. Dad cleared his throat. We saw the filings, he said. We didn't know he'd gone that far. You didn't want to know, I said quietly. Mom flinched like I'd slapped her. We trusted him, she tried. He said you were blocking his ideas. He said this was the only way. I stared at her. Do you have any idea how many times you said to me, he needs the opportunity? I asked. When he skipped shifts. When he crashed Grandpa's car. When he stole suppliers' samples and tried to resell them. You always had an excuse. He's just finding his way, she whispered, almost reflexively. I shook my head. No. He's not finding his way. He's 40 steps down a path you watched him take. You didn't just stand by. You pushed him down it and told me my job was to cushion the fall. Dad looked at his hands. We did fail you, he admitted. We should have backed you when Dad chose you. We should have seen what Nolan was doing before it got this far. I wanted those words for years. But hearing them now, after everything, they just felt late. I appreciate you saying that, I said slowly. But I can't unlive the years of being treated like the help while he strutted around like the crown prince. Mom's eyes filled. We want to fix it, she said. We want to be part of the restaurant again. To support you. I thought of Brian's loyal presence. The servers who had my back. The vendors who emailed me now, not Grandpa. The foundation I was building in Grandpa's name. I don't know if you can, I said honestly. Harsh as that sounds. Hart's Table is stable now. Stronger. I don't need your approval. I don't need your ideas. And honestly, I don't trust your judgment. Dad winced, but he didn't argue. I need time, I said. Maybe, someday, we can find a way to have some kind of relationship. But it's not going to look like the one we had before. Hart's Table comes first. My peace comes first. Mom nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. We understand, she whispered. And for once, I believed she actually might. 8 months after the conference, Hart's Table was busier than I'd ever seen it. We opened a second location downtown, a smaller, slightly more modern version of the original. Same recipes. Same warm wood. Same photo of Grandpa by the door. Brian runs the downtown spot now. Every time I visit, he greets me with a half bow and a joking, "Welcome, boss," and it still makes me laugh. Our staff is solid. Loyal. The drama with Nolan actually made things clearer for them. There was no more ambiguity about who led. I I sign the checks, I take responsibility, and I share the wins. An unexpected wave of goodwill came in from the industry. Chefs and owners who'd watched the saga from a distance started reaching out. "Loved how you handled that," one wrote. "Too many heirs ruin what their parents built. You protected it." That's when the idea for the foundation came. I named it the Henry Hart Hospitality Fund. We offer small grants to line cooks who want to go to culinary school, to dishwashers who want to learn front of house, to little neighborhood spots knocked sideways by unexpected bills. We also run weekend workshops in our original kitchen, showing high school kids how to make Grandpa's braised short ribs and, more importantly, how to run a kitchen that doesn't chew them up. At the end of each workshop, I tell them a short version of this story, not the family gossip, but the lesson. I tell them, in this industry, there will always be someone who wants to cash in on work they didn't do. On your work. Your name. Your sweat. Your ideas. Your recipes. Protect them. Even from people who share your last name. Their faces are always so wide-eyed. But some of them nod like they recognize the dynamic already. Every time, I ask, what would you have done if you were me? If your own brother tried to sell your family's restaurant without permission? Their answers vary. But the feeling in the room is always the same: you did the right thing. It took me a long time to believe that without guilt. As for Nolan? Last I heard, he left LA. He bounced around a couple of cities, tried a couple of half-baked consulting gigs, but nothing stuck. Word follows you in this industry, especially when your lies involved contracts and investors. For a while, he posted vague rage on social media, about haters, and backstabbing family, and cancel culture. But his audience shrank. Even people who like drama got bored of the same bitter tune. At some point, he stopped tagging Hart's Table in anything. I haven't spoken to him since the conference. Not because I want him ruined. But because I'm finally done being his crash pad. Mom and Dad send the occasional holiday message. I reply sometimes I don't. We're not estranged exactly. We're just distant. And for now, that distance feels healthier than the closeness we had before, where my entire identity was the one who sacrifices. Grandpa still calls me once a week. He doesn't ask about Nolan. He asks about the menu. About the new line cook from Oaxaca who's teaching us a better way to do mole. About my stress levels. You sleeping? He'll ask. More than I used to, I tell him. Good, he says. A tired captain makes sloppy decisions. Sometimes, when the restaurant is closed and the lights are low, I stand in the middle of the dining room and just take it in. The scuffed floorboards from 30 years of footsteps. The little brass plate Grandpa put on table 6 because that was his favorite spot. The buzz of the walk-in fridge. The soft sound of the city outside. I think about that slap. I think about the way the room froze. And I think about how that night, for the first time in my life, I didn't make myself smaller so my brother could feel big. I let his actions be seen. I let his choices catch up with him. And I chose me. If you've made it this far into my story, you probably see a piece of yourself somewhere in it. Maybe you're the older sibling who always understands, while the younger one needs more support. Maybe you're the responsible kid who became the default manager of everything your family owns. Maybe you've been told family helps family so many times it feels like a law of physics. Let me tell you what I wish someone had told me when I was younger. Legacy is not a birthright. It's earned. My brother thought sharing a last name entitled him to everything my grandfather built. It didn't. The universe doesn't care who the golden child is at your parents' dinner table. It cares who shows up at 2 a.m. to fix the broken freezer. Family loyalty is not a free pass for abuse, fraud, or betrayal. Slapping your sister in public is not passion. Forging contracts with your grandfather's signature is not ambition. Those are choices. And choices have consequences, even when your mom thinks you're special. You're allowed to protect what's yours. Your peace. Your business. Your time. Your money. Your reputation. If your sibling, cousin, parent, whoever, keeps using you as their emotional or financial backup plan while trashing you to others, you are allowed to step away. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to shut off the tap. Setting boundaries may break your family's illusion, but it won't break you. It will save you. Did it hurt when my dad quietly nodded along to Nolan's speech? Absolutely. Did it hurt when my mom said I was holding the spot until Nolan was ready? Yes. Those moments still sting. But you know what would have hurt more? Letting my brother sell off pieces of Heart's table, then watching my grandpa's life's work crumble because I was too scared to rock the boat. So if you are listening to this while doing dishes, or driving home from another family gathering where you did all the work and someone else got all the praise, I want you to hear me. You are not selfish for wanting fairness. You are not cruel for letting people face the consequences of their own choices. You are not ungrateful for refusing to be someone's maid, ATM, or silent partner in your own life. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is exactly what I did that night. Look Prince Spotlight in the eye and decide you're done protecting him from himself. Let me know in the comments, have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and your own sanity? What did you do? I read these stories. You're not alone in this. And if you're still in the middle of it, still trying to figure out whether you're crazy for wanting out, you're not crazy. You're just finally starting to see who actually loves you. And who only loves what they can get from you.